Dr. Nan Hayworth joins us now, member of Congress from the great state of New York. Doctor, it's good to have you on the program.
Great to be with you, Lars.
Listen, I want to ask you about a couple of things, but first of all, I want to get your take on Obamacare. This has to be done away with, doesn't it? I want to know your point of view as a doctor and as a member of Congress.
Absolutely, from both perspectives. And in fact, Lars, that's why I ran. I'm one of the citizen legislators who was elected in the great wave of 2010 by an American public that continues very sensibly to reject this law. It has the right goals. We want every American to have good, affordable health care and to have affordable, portable health insurance. But this law is a $2 trillion albatross around our necks. And it takes $500 billion out of Medicare that program absolutely cannot afford. We can honor those goals and do them far better.
Doctor, should I actually feel I'm giving you a better honor by calling you doctor rather than, congressman, because,
You can call me Nan, Lars. It's fine, but thank you.
Well, that's very nice, Nan. I appreciate that because, in New York State, you've got people with, wrangle with the name congressman in front of their name, and that that's not a shining example of legislative ability, or it is a good tax ability. He's got some good tax
Oh,
sheets.
my, yes. He's a champion at taxing.
Do you folks ever kid each other? You walk up and say, hey, Charlie, can you help me with my taxes this year? I need to get more back. Or are you allowed to do that? Is that considered too mean?
Just you can imagine, Lars, just about all of our colleagues in person are very congenial and very pleasant people. And most of the time, when I frequently do have a difference with them over policy, it doesn't extend to the personal, but you can bet that we have a lot of vigorous arguments in our committees and on the floor about the issues that are crucial right now. And the health law, of course, is the most egregious example of what we could fix for our economy, for our small businesses, for the unemployed, with the stroke of a pen.
Have you figured out why Governor Romney is now saying it's a penalty and not a tax? Because I'm trying to figure from the outside No, because I don't understand the politics. I thought it would be better to say, yes, you're right. The Supreme Court has now said that the President of the United States is responsible for the largest single tax increase in human history, and we should let him own that. And instead, he's arguing it's not a tax, and now Romney is joining him in the argument, and I don't get it from the outside.
Yeah, Lars, I agree with you. I think it may be a matter of, there is the Massachusetts law that the state. I don't blame Governor Romney for that because the state wanted that law and still likes it. But I think under that Massachusetts program, it was a penalty. It was an individual mandate that was not couched as a tax, and so there probably is that rhetorical desire not to think of it as a tax. But whatever it may be, Lars, and either way, if it's a tax or a penalty, it is a violation of our individual liberties. I continue to hold that it is a violation of the Commerce Clause. It is an extension that isn't justified, and we need to repeal and replace that law, irrespective of what the court's decision was. And, of course, Lars, this does point up. I mean, it really does tell us starkly that we have to have House and Senate and White House aligned, or we are not going to be free from this law.
Let me ask you about something else. You've brought up this new bill that has to do with the tax benefits that people get when they use public transportation and they're going to park their car, I guess, at one end of their commute or the other, versus the folks who drive automobiles to work who get to take the cost of parking off as an expense. What do we have to what's desirable to fix in that equation?
Well, I think we're operating on two levels here, Lars. On the one hand, from 30,000 feet, I am a proponent of simplifying our tax code as completely as possible. I've been a flat tax advocate. And on the other, we do have a situation in which in an economy that really is creating a lot of tough times for a lot of people, including in our Hudson Valley here, commuters were glad, mass transit commuters were glad to have parity with drivers in their commuter tax credit, and that was part of the stimulus. It expired as of January 1st. Understandably, it wasn't renewed in the transportation bill, which was really something that was important to pass, and we did manage to reach a 2-year consensus on that for the moment. We have a lot more work to do, but in the meantime, I felt it would be reasonable and appropriate to mobilize part of one of the slush funds as a pay for, so to speak, to provide for that equalization for mass transit users, and that's our idea with this Commuter Savings Act, that will restore an equal tax credit to them. So they'll go to $240 per month, just as drivers do, pending our complete revamping of the tax code, I should add. And we will mobilize, we'll put dollars back in people's pockets and take discretionary funds or slush funds out of the implementation of the Affordable Care Act. So it's a win-win.
Well, Nan, I've got to tell you, since you've let me call you Nan, I hope you're not going to think less of me when I don't. There's something about this that bugs me. I'm a proponent of mass transit, but
right.
I also understand that when I get in my car every morning, I paid the capital cost for that car. I pay the insurance cost for the car. I pay the maintenance costs, and then I pay the fuel, and then I pay the parking. The person who gets on mass transit, if he's in most of the cities in America, he's paying maybe 20% of the operating cost of that vehicle and none of the capital cost. So I know that folks feel sorry for folks who take mass transit, I guess. In some cases, it can be very convenient and may even put you closer to your office than a car would, because you do have to park it and deal with it. But it seems though the person who's riding a vehicle he didn't pay any of the capital costs for and is only paying 20-25% at most of the operating cost, he's already got a pretty tremendous deal. Why do we need to sweeten his deal up?
Well, I think it's a really challenging issue for those of us who are in urban and suburban areas, because I know I used mass transit when I had a job in New York City, and I live about an hour north of New York, and I always use mass transit. And I think mass transit does have advantages for us in terms of keeping the roads less congested, so there's less wear and tear on that infrastructure, on our roads and bridges, and also it is an environmentally less energy-consuming way of getting from A to B for our commuters. So I think it's reasonable to, give them the same kind of credit break that we're giving to drivers, because all of them, have a role to play in our working society. But I agree with you. There are all kinds of issues involved with conferring these sorts of tax credits, and we have an excessively complicated tax structure, and it would be much easier for everyone in America if we could simplify it, clean sheet of paper, and really make it far flatter and fairer for everybody.
Do you think we could ever get to that flat tax, not the fair tax? That I think is way too complicated, but the flat tax where we're all going to pay 17 or 18 or 19% flat rate, no deductions. If you're given to charity, it's your business. If you, and the only, and I guess the only complication would be you'd have to deal with write-offs in terms of business write-offs. But if you say, if you own a business, you say, here are my cost inputs, here are my outputs, here's what I'm taking home in salary, and you pay 17 or 19% of that. That seems real fair. And I think if you put it to a public opinion poll, while the government doesn't like flat taxes because they can't push you around, I think the public loves flat taxes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, Lars, I agree. That is an applause line at every town hall when you mention it, because it's, number one, we want to cut everybody's taxes to the fullest extent we can, and for most people it would be a big tax break if we could flatten the tax structure. I would love to see a postcard tax, and I think it's going to be a great challenge to achieve it. I have a lot of faith in Dave Camp, who's our House Ways and Means Committee chair, and I think if anyone can get us as close to that as possible or get us there, he's a great leader for that.
Well, is the Congress going to get anything done between now and the election, do you think, before the lame duck session?
Well, Lars, the House of Representatives, we have a tremendous, very dynamic and very dedicated leadership who really do want to be effective. And as you know, they have been effective in the House of Representatives. And we've had Democratic colleagues join us on almost every bill we've passed. We have passed dozens of pieces of legislation, Lars. The Speaker, I think, just produced a small video in which he had all these bills laid out on a table. This one will cut your taxes. This one will reduce federal spending. This one will increase our energy supply and decrease your pain at the pump. And as you know, maybe about 10% of the bills that we have passed through the House have been acted on by the Senate.
Yeah.
So really the question has to be asked, when will the Senate get its act together? The Senate leadership, that is to say. It's a disgrace, Lars.
Well,
and it
I know that
the American people.
I know that Senator Reid probably thinks he has his act together. He's acting as the doorstop. I mean, he's one
right.
big doorstop over there. President Obama says, make sure none of those bills get inside the door,
Right.
and Harry Reid's acting as a very effective doorstop, and but it's probably a great job for him as a doorstop. But he probably thinks he is effective. I think he's very effective at keeping the Congress from doing anything, which is
you're right, Lars, and it's a terrible thing to think, but it's hard not to think that there is a political aim there, and that Senator Reid is certainly working to validate the notion that President Obama has been pushing, that this is a do-nothing Congress. Nothing could be further from the truth on the House side. And it's so important that Americans understand that, and I appreciate your advocacy for the responsible government point of view. We have a House majority that wants to do the right thing for all the American people. It has
Absolutely.
nothing to do with partisanship. This is not a partisan issue.
Nope, not at all.
We want to work with our colleagues, and we can.
Doctor, it is a pleasure to have you on the show. You're welcome back anytime. Thanks for the time tonight.
Well, thank you. I'm honored. Thank you so much.
Doctor and Congresswoman Nan Hayworth from the great state of New York.